Hello everyone, and welcome to EGT106. This is going to be your first task of the module. We have here a garden appliance that has been kindly donated to us, and what I actually want you to do is to take this apart, be able to tell me how it works, and also be able to tell me why it isn't working. Yeah, the purpose of this task is to allow you to use your own creativity, to sort of understand why something should work, why it shouldn't work. Now, there'll be some time in this session where you can research this appliance, see if you can find a manual for it, see if you can find a product code, and see if you can potentially find out troubleshooting to it. Now, I'm going to provide you with all the tools. I'm also going to provide you I will also film myself taking this apart, but I'm not going to show you that until you've completed it. Yeah. What I would suggest that you do is that you take the time to understand where parts have come from. Anything that you take out, you need to label to say how it goes back. Yeah. In completing this task, I want you to be able to put this appliance back together in exactly the same way as it was when I gave it to you. Yeah. So take your time, work as a group, work as a team, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so the first thing that I'd be looking at if this was me is what does what. Yeah. So we've obviously got a fuel tank on the back. We've obviously got some kind of choke here, which is your running speed. We've got a spark plug cap, and we've got a pull start mechanism, an on-off switch, and an accelerator. Now, I know that this is a single cylinder internal combustion engine, yeah, which is used to power a strimmer. Now, that to me says from a safety perspective that this could potentially have oil in it, it could have flammable liquids, it could have anything. Now, the reason why I'm stripping this down before I let you guys loose on it, is purely because I want to get rid of those fluids, because I don't want to risk any of you potentially hurting yourselves. So my first job is I'm going to clean the outside, make sure everything's nice and clean, no residual fluids, and then we're going to look into we're going to start taking some of the covers away. Yeah. Now, one tip that I would give you in this is never to force anything. Yeah. Never to force anything, and labelling, as I said in the introduction, is key here. Yeah. If we take something off, where do we take it off from? Yeah. Now, this is just a little bit of brake cleaner on a rag. It tends to be quite good at taking off oily residues and deposits and things like that. So we'll just give it a quick wipe over. We're just trying to remove any residual muck that might be left behind. From a quick brief inspection of the fuel tank, I can see that there's not an awful lot of fuel in it, but at the same time, that only is what we can see. Yeah, we can't go any further. So at this point, because we can't see what's going on. Yeah, so we need to think about starting to remove some of the cases. Now, this is the first time that I have done this. So, looking at that cover will come away. Yeah. Now, whilst we're there, let's have a quick look inside. Now, we have got some grease and some residue building up inside there. Yeah. So we'll just give that a quick blast. See what that might entail. Yeah. Now, the way in which an internal combustion engine works is there is a fuel supply, there's petrol, and there's a spark. Now, every time there is a stroke of this engine, that fuel is ignited. That force pushes down on a piston, yeah, which will then power the output drive. So we must have a fuel tank, we must have a way for oxygen to get in, we must have a spark plug. So we've got a fuel tank here, we've got what I would imagine is a small carburetor here, we've got an air filter on the back, and we've got a spark plug up on the top. So I'd imagine the main body of the engine is underneath this cover. Yeah. Now, when I first take something apart, I'd like to see the manual, which I haven't done on this, but we need to have a look at how it might potentially come apart. Now, to start taking these covers off, if I just have a feel there, I would say that there is 3 screws here that need to come away. Now, these are not your normal screws, yeah? Most screws that you see have either got that you may have seen in the past have got a cross head or a Phillips head, a cross head or a flat head. These screws, unfortunately, I can't get them too light the box. These screws are what's known as Torx keys. Yeah, they use these purely because they want to see, they want to make it safe and prevent people from opening them. They're a kind of security key. Yeah, so you need to find the right size. Now that one is obviously too big. That, hopefully, if it focuses, you should be able to see. Whoops! You should be able to see that they are not your typical. Come on. Not your typical screw head. So we go through the box and we try to find the one that fits. I'm not going to tell you when you're doing this. You need to have a look through and see if you can find the one that fits. Now that, to me, is a nice fit in there. It's nice and tight. Yeah. So let's go about just trying to take this back cover off. Now, that, as you can see, isn't sat straight. Yeah. The tool doesn't have enough clearance. With these heads, you need to be careful that you're not rounding anything off. You'll be given an extension which you can use to get a nice seat on those heads. Yeah, break them off, slowly unturn them, and let's have a look. Whoops! And that's why you need to be careful, because now we've lost the fastener. I will find it afterwards. When you take them out, you have no idea how long these screws potentially are. Yeah, so do be careful that you don't lose them. Now, if you're going to put a screw down, is that safe there? It's not. You could potentially lose it. Yeah? So we need to make sure that we have something ready to put the screws in. Yeah, then they don't go missing. So make sure you have a pot or something similar. Now, for example, I've now undone them 2 screws. Yeah? If I haven't had a look, I could start pulling. That's not ready to come away. It doesn't want to move. Yeah? So I urge you not to force it. Have a look through, see if you can find another fastener. If something doesn't move, don't be swinging on it. There is a reason why it's not moving. So that there still doesn't want to come off. Yeah, it's looser, but it doesn't want to move. There is another fastener deep inside there that you'll have to undo. Yeah, I urge you to take your time with this. Yeah, take your time in taking it apart. Yeah, now we can see, whilst we're going through, we need to have a quick look at the parts and see what we can see. Now, there is some oil on there. Yeah, should that oil be there? I don't know. Yeah, it's something that you're going to have a look at. It could be that a seal has failed inside. Yeah, but considering I'm letting you lot have a go at this, I am going to clean it up as I'm going around. Minimal mess. At this point, hopefully you will have found the product code on the back. Yeah, you may be able to find a manual for this piece of equipment. Yeah, keep those screws together with that piece. Yeah, but up to now we can see the parts of the engine now. Yeah, we've got a much more clearer view of what's going on. Right, okay, so we've got that back cover off. We now need to assess what we can actually see. I'm just going to check that you can see. Oops. Yeah. We now need to assess what we can actually see. I mean, from this point we've got quite a lot of access. We can see an exhaust, we can see the cylinder, we can see the base of the engine, we can also see the fuel delivery system. Yeah? So at this point we can continue to take it apart. Yeah. Now, I want to remove the fuel tank purely because I don't want to be taking something into college that's already got fuel in it. Luckily, all of the fasteners on this piece of equipment seem at this stage to have the same type of fastener on them. Yeah, so you shouldn't have to be changing bits too often. Yeah, so like I said, make sure you have a pack ready. Those two go with that. These are going to stay with the fuel tank. Yeah. So that to me looks like it's just those two screws that are holding that fuel tank on. Now I might be wrong. It seems like there is a bracket up at the back there. So give it a little bit of a pull. If it doesn't move, then we can look at why. Right, there's another screw that's recessed in the middle there that needs to be undone. Yeah? So we go about and we undo them all. Always taking the time to remember where these fasteners are from. Now, as you can see, this is rather grubby. Yeah, we need to make sure we're not going to drop that, and we need to make sure we know where these lines are going from. Yeah, because we don't want to get them confused when we put them back on. Yeah, now the easiest way to do this would be to mark on it which line is the top and which line is the bottom. Yeah, so as you can see on the back here, yeah, one obviously goes to the top, one obviously goes to the bottom. Yeah, so what I would do is get yourself a permanent marker, a permanent pen. There should be one provided in your pack, and mark on it which one is the top. This one is going to the top. Yeah, now if you've got a notepad, at this point I would suggest that you mark that on as well. Yeah, make a note of everything that you're doing as you're doing it. Yeah, now to remove these fuel lines, doesn't look like it wants to come out that way. They need to come off the nipples on the top of the carburetor. Yeah, so we pull them away like so. Yeah, at which point there is still a little touch of fuel left in there, so we're going to be careful with it. Yeah, the other thing that we need to do is I'm going to give that a clean up as well. Yeah, so you're not getting something that is covered in oil to deal with. Yeah, what are the first observations that you're making at this point? For me, it's that this machine, this piece of equipment, probably hasn't been cared for as well as it could have been. Yeah, that could mean that maybe they haven't used the right oil in it. It could mean that they've used old petrol in it. It could mean anything. All the time that you are taking something apart to try and find out why it doesn't work, you need to be considering these things. It's all about what story the piece of equipment is trying to tell you. Yeah, what is it trying to say? Yeah, keep the screws together. Yeah, keep everything together. Okay, so at this point we've managed to get the fuel tank off, we've managed to get the covers off, and we can have a pretty good see at what's going on inside. Now, what I would be looking for at this point, if I was you, would be seeing if there was any leakages going on, and it appears there are. You know, it does look like there's a lot of build-up of muck around here. Now, all the internal components of this engine should be sealed. Yeah, should be sealed by gaskets. That's what this is. This here. It seems like there has been seals that have failed. Now, what I think we need to do again is you need to carry on at this point and see which would be the next way to take this off. Now, I'd be tempted at this point to have a look at possibly taking off this carburetor assembly. But as always, you need to have a look at what's happening before you do it. You don't just want to yank things off if you can help it. Now that there, this power lead here, is a switching mechanism. This is going to this switch up on the handle. So first of all, I would suggest disconnecting that. from there, because that's running up through the back, but we're not sure whether that's where it's attached. So we don't want to be removing something to then find we can't get it back together. So the other thing that we've got is up around the back we have the linkage for the throttle, which is here. Yeah, we can see if we pull the throttle it engages on the side here. Yeah, so we need to disconnect that as well. So we're basically disconnecting the carburetor from the rest of the engine. So what we need to do at this point is that should pull up and round and clip off, and that is then away. Yeah, I'm sure if you take some time you will see how to get that off. Now what we also need to do is have a look at removing the carburetor. Now I think from looking at this it seems like this screw may go all the way through and then connect it into the back plate here. Now this plate is loose. This is just, I think, just to protect the fins which provide cooling for the engine. So let's have a go and see what happens here if we crack this off. Now, there's fluid inside there. Now, before we take that all the way out, let's get the other one undone, because we don't want it to spin in place. Also, you need, if you are doing this, when you're doing this, you need to be ready to catch it. That's now loose. Right. So take those screws off. That's a filter. We can see there's a little bit of debris in there, a little bit of leaves, things like that, but there's not much. Yeah, we've got a choke assembly here which is open and closed. Yeah, but we can see that there is a bit of debris, but it's not too much. You know, I wouldn't imagine it's what's starving the engine at this stage. So let's move that over to one side. Now those screws are incredibly long. Oh, there we go. So that was attached through that seal. Now as you can see, even when I'm trying to move things, I'm not wrenching on them. I'm literally just little twist. Yeah? So that's brought the carburetor assembly off. Now this here is a prime. Yeah? So what that does is basically sucks fuel in this way, and that pushes fuel down into the carburetor, which can then be drawn into the engine with every stroke. Yeah? So at this point we need to give this a clean, but before we do, I'm just going to have a quick look around it, see what condition it's in. You know, it's got an awful lot of rubbish all over it. It's not clean and clear like you might expect from somebody who's been maintaining it. I need to just grab a cloth. Okay. So we give this a squirt down and give it a nice clean, just clean it up. Because as I've already said, I don't really want to be bringing stuff into the college that's either got fuel in it or is potentially grubby. At the same time, we're trying to make sure that we're not damaging anything. Yeah, we want to make sure that everything is the way it's meant to be. It's not exactly the easiest. I've not said that in the way I should. We want to make sure that everything is clear. Yeah? Not covered in rubbish. So I'm literally just cleaning it off, making sure that everything is nice and free from debris. Make sure we're not getting anything inside though. Give that a spray out. We also don't want to make sure, I've marked where the fuel line connects in, we want to make sure that we don't rub those markings off, because they're going to be imperative when we come to put it back together. Now, I would expect if you're going to remove something, you need to draw yourself some diagrams of how things actually go together. It's something you do need to consider. So, that there is our carburetor assembly. We're then going to give this a quick clean as well. Remove the nuts. Like I say, if you were just repairing this, you wouldn't need to do this. You give it a quick clean over, but at the same time, you know, it's coming into college, and I have to be careful that you're not going to damage the whole room when you come to take it apart. So that's why I'm taking this time, to make sure everything's clean for you. Whoops. Right. Okay, so now we've already spoken about storing stuff so that you know how to get it back together. What I would suggest is, we've now got a new part with 2 new screws, yeah? Is you need to make sure it came off that way. This was in front of that, like so. So I would slot that through there like that, and put the screws back into position. That screw through the other one, yeah? Put that back into position, and now you've got that where it should be, yeah? So all in all, we are coming apart slowly but surely, yeah? Keep your work surface nice and clean. Right, okay, so carburetor is off. It would appear that that connection went through the case anyway, so we didn't necessarily have to undo it, but at the same time, it's good practice too. If you think there's a chance that something might come away and it might foul it, then unplug it. You can always plug it back together if you need to. Yeah? Right, okay, so I believe we're at a point now where we need to remove the engine from the assembly. Everything else I can see is blocked by cases. So I've had a look down through this case, and it doesn't look like there is any splits in it. So I would imagine that we just unbolt the engine and away it comes. Now I might be wrong, could possibly be wrong, I'm not sure. So at this point, I think we're going to try and see if we can separate this case from the engine. So we'll undo these 4 screws here. I mean, always be ready to put it back together if that is not the case. Take note as well, is there any washers that are coming out with it? Or is it just a nut? It's just a nut, yeah? Made my own fatal mistake there, didn't have a tub ready to put those in. Now, make sure you have a tub ready. These are going to be the nuts from the case. So we'll undo these around this part first. Aha, right. So at this point you don't want to pull, yeah? Just see what's happening. Right, so that's catching on something there. So I would imagine that we have to also undo these 4. Remember that we have a screw in there, yeah? We don't want to be tipping this upside down if we can help it at this point. We undo these 4 screws and I'm hoping it will come away. Now, because they are different types of screw, we want to put them into a different tray. These are the ones off the front of the housing rather than the back. Now I might be wrong here in opening this, I'm not sure. We don't know until we've done it. I've not seen the manual, I'm in the same boat that you lot are. I'm guessing that this is for the pull start mechanism. Try again. Aha. Now we're moving a lot more. What's it catching on? It's still catching on something. Right, okay. So what it's actually catching on there is this mechanism here. It's this. So what we need to do is untie that knot. At which point we can take that off. I would be tempted to retie this, because if there's another hole underneath here, which quite possibly there is, we don't want to lose that. Right, and then we've managed to get it away. Now we can see, if you can see in there, there is a clutch housing, a bell housing there that looks like it's been pressed into a bearing, yeah, and that's what's going to be providing drive further down, yeah. But now we've at least managed to get the case apart at that stage, and we now have our engine that we can have a look at. Right, okay, now we've got the casing out of the way, we can take a look at what we've got here. So we've got a single cylinder engine, yeah. Here is where the piston will be inside. The bottom is where the output shaft is, and this is where the drive is transferred to the end of the cylinder, at the end of the strimmer, sorry. Now this here is what's known as a centrifugal clutch. As this spins at speed, these expand out, which contact with that bell housing and transmit the drive from the engine to the end of the strimmer. Yeah. Now, if we have a look here, we can see that there is signs of wear on this part. I mean, I would be tempted to say that it's potentially missing its shoes as well. Now, they should have some like grippy material, brake-like material on the outside edges, which allow it to grab on to that bell housing. And from what I can see, there isn't any on here. Yeah. So that could be something. Now, to check that, what I would be tempted to do is take this part off. You need to be careful because it has got a big spring inside it. We don't want that firing off. Yeah, but I would be tempted to take this part out, take this part away, take this part off, keep it together, but it has a part number on it, if you can see. It says 38-24, yeah. Now, I'd be tempted to put that part number into a website and see if it was meant to have shoes on it. Now, it looks to me like there's recesses cut there, so it looks potentially like there was at some point. It could be that this strimmer's problem was that these shoes were just worn out. Yeah, we're not sure at this stage, but I'd be tempted to put that in to a search engine and have a look at where that could potentially, whether that is a potential issue with it. Yeah. Now, just as a bit of a tip, yeah, if you are taking something off a shaft like this, yeah, put them in the order that they come off. So we had that facing that way, washer came off facing that way. Yeah. Now, something interesting here. There's a sign of wear on the back of that. That's wear there. Yeah. That could potentially have been caused by this rubbing against it. Now, maybe this wasn't tight, and that's why it was having a loss of force. Not sure. But it's another part to the story, isn't it? Yeah. Make sure you as you take things off, make sure you put them in the same order that they come off in. Yeah. So when you go to put them back together, you pick this up, you put it on, and away you go. Now, before we continue with this engine, yeah, one thing that we need to have a look at is this, the pull start mechanism. Not because I think we're looking for fault finding here, but when I said to tie a knot in the end of this, the reason is this piece of cable is sprung. If you let go of this, it will fly off. And you will not be able to rewind it back on. Yeah, without taking great lengths and taking lots of time. So what I suggest you need to do, and I will tell you this before you set off, is as soon as you take this off, you then need to retie it. Retie it, put it back on, like that. This assembly is now secure. We're not potentially going to lose anything, and we know that it's safe. It's not going to start flying apart and breaking everywhere. Yeah. So it came off that way. Yeah. So we're going to put it that way around on the desk. Yeah. So we know that these come off in that order. Now, these might not stay in that order. So what I suggest you do is one of your group, get your mobile phone, take a picture. Right, take a picture. That's the order that they go on in. And then at the end of the day, you've got a chance of putting it back together in the right way. Right, now as you may have noticed, this strimmer requires no batteries. That means that for the spark to continue, there must be a way to charge it. Now, the reason that works is because we have two magnets in here. Now, if you notice, if I spin this, it will catch at a certain it catches at a certain point. Yeah, that's because there is a magnet. That magnet spinning generates a charge. Yeah, that charge is then sent up through this magneto coil here, which is then transferred into a spark, which provides our spark plug with the ignition that it needs to keep the petrol exploding and providing us with force. Yeah. Now, what I'm going to do next is remove the magneto. Yeah. This section here. Yeah. Now, it's got quite a few electrical connections. The first of all being this switch. Now, we don't ever want to be just yanking things off. Yeah. So, what you need to do is just carefully tease these things and just see what happens. Right. That comes off like that. So we can put that piece off to one side. Yeah. All the time we're looking just to see if there's any oil or debris anywhere. Right. Now this looks like it is just a spade connection on the top. So we just give that a quick pull. Try to be gentle with it. Walk it off. Now, it's a good job I did that because it appears that as much as so. Right. I've just given that a pull up, and as you can see, it's connected here further down. Yeah, so we need to undo this nut here before we carry on. So we crack that nut off, same as much as we have done with all the others. Undo it, and then we can remove that ground clamp. I'm presuming that's what it is. Yeah, so we've got a new box out ready for the nuts that we take away. Take that off. we remove that, and now we should be able to just walk that up, which we can, and away it comes. Yeah, one complete piece. Yeah, now you need to label these parts. Yeah, that there is your switch. Yeah, this goes onto the top of that spade connection. Yeah, now we could spend time putting fancy labels on, but the other option to do is just a dot of black marker on it, and a dot of black marker on that connection up at the top here. Yeah, we know then that that needs to go back on there when it goes back on. We know it threads through this piece. Yeah, and this piece goes on to protect the carburetor from the heat of the engine. Yeah, we keep our screws in a safe place. That one has got a washer on it. Yeah, so we need to make sure that we keep that washer together with it. Yeah, now what else is holding this on? Yeah, there is only one more screw, so if we remove that, in theory this should come away. And it does, and away it comes. Yeah, now we need to remove the spark plug socket. These can always be sometimes be a little bit tricky because they are quite stiff. This is an outside machine, so it's going to have been designed to keep water out. Yeah, so that boot, we have a quick look inside it, we're inspecting for any damage. We can't see any damage. It was obvious that it was held on quite well. Yeah, and away we come. Yeah, now those screws that are in there we know are for the magneto coil. Yeah, so we could either keep them in the box or they're both the same length. What I would suggest you do is put them back in. Put them back in, we don't lose them. There is one caveat to this. If you catch that screw, which you can do, there is a chance that you will snap it off. You need to be careful of doing that. Yeah, and then you'll find as well, looking at this, we need to keep that in the right order. So let's just not take that off just yet. Just slot that screw in there. Unfortunately that is magnetic, so it's trying to grab hold of it all the time. So we push, stick that screw back in, like so, at which point we can then remove the flywheel. Now this is literally just held on by the front nut, so what we need to do now is make sure we keep our order. Yeah, so that came off first, then there's a washer, then that came off like that. Yeah, we place it all in the right order. Yeah, to make sure that we put it back on in the right order. Yeah, I can't stress the importance of having everything in the right order. I'm going to put some photographs up on the screen of how I've laid it out on the bench here, and it shows how it comes off. I'll just take a photograph of that. That then gives us the order of disassembly. Make sure I take a photo, because all it takes is for me to swipe that bench and then our whole order is a mess. Yeah. Now, looking again for signs of wear here, yeah, there doesn't seem to be any. This, on the front of it, this shaft is reasonably clean. It's, you know, there's bits of muck in there, which you would expect. There's a little bit of grease down at the bottom here. Now, whether that's just from general running of the engine, I can't see any drip marks, I can't see that it's leaked out from anywhere. So it would surprise me if that's where it's from. So we're going to give that a clean. I just need my clean. I would have loved to have given you the engine in this state, but like I say, as I've said a few times throughout this whole video, you know, we are working in a classroom, we're not working in a workshop, and unfortunately we need to keep the area clean. So, okay, so that takes us, the flywheel's now free, we've got more or less everything free. We can now move on to removing the exhaust. Okay, so we're going to remove the exhaust now. We're going to have a look inside here. Now, I would expect to find possibly some mess, possibly some carbon, not really sure, without getting it open and actually having a look. Now, take this off. And away it comes. Yeah, we have the exhaust port on the back, and this will come apart on its own. Let's move that over there for a moment. Right, so they come out, they're not captive, so we need to be careful. We've got two washers on there, we need to be careful that we keep them in the right positions. Yeah, they are both the same length. That one appears to be stuck. So, I think it's just a poorly fitting joint inside there, that's all. Right, we'll put that in there. We don't lose them. Right, another line of parts. Now, we're looking in here. We have got some dust. There's a carbon filter in there. It doesn't look particularly clogged. I'm not sure. And there's obviously heat shielding material around it. Yeah, it looks like to me. Oh no, it does come further apart. Right, and you can have a look. I would imagine that that filter in there could possibly be changed. No, it can't. So that is your exhaust system. Yeah. Now, once again, it's obviously important how that comes apart, and you need to be aware of which way it goes back together, yeah, for when we come to put this back together. Yeah, I'm just going to give that a quick wipe over, same as we've done with everything else. It would appear that that's not a carbon build-up. I thought it was. I think it's just the paint that they've used. So, and we know that it comes off that way with our front cover on. So we've got our cover, and we put that next to it. Right, we can have a look at the exhaust port now. Yeah, once again, quick clean. We're constantly trying to make sure that we've got everything cleaned up here. Yeah, we don't want to be giving you something messy. I must have said that about 1,000 times in this video. But you can see how we've slowly but surely worked our way back down to something that looks remotely like an engine, from being originally a strimmer. We've broken it down slowly but surely. Now, the next bit, we're going to move on to, it's a toss up at this point whether I remove the spark plug or whether I remove the bottom end. I'm not too sure. I'm going to think about it and then we'll move on to the next bit. Right, so now we're going to move on to removing the spark plugs. The spark plug, singular. The interesting thing about spark plugs in this setting is that they can actually tell us an awful lot about what the running quality of the machine was like. Now, I will not put that back on there as stiff. So, before we get this out, if it's clean and it's silver, you can see silver, then it's quite possible that the engine's been running quite lean. Now, if it's black and full of carbon, and it's been running too rich. Now this is a 2-stroke machine, which means it requires 2-stroke oil. It should be a nice hair looking colour. Now if you look at that, let's bring it over here so you can see it. Need some more light. That there is far more black than we would want it to be. The camera's struggling to pick it up. But that's far more black than we would want it to be. Which suggests to me that it's possible that maybe the person that had this before has possibly put a bit too much oil in. 2-stroke oil you mix independently, and it would suggest to me that that's potentially what he's done. Now, on this particular engine, we can't actually remove the cylinder head. It's all in one piece. But what we can do is we can go from the bottom. We can remove this, and hopefully we should see a bearing down at the bottom, and we should be able to remove the piston, I would hope. Now, we need to make sure that when we're taking these screws out, if they're not all the same, yeah, then we need to make sure that we keep them in the right order. So, also be careful as you're removing them, because you don't want to warp this seal, so don't just go wrenching them all off at once. What you want to do is try and undo them in some sort of even manner. Crack them off, because it's good practice if you're going to undo anything to undo it in that way, because we don't want to be causing any more stress onto this thin piece of cast aluminium. Once you've got them all off, then you can take them out. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go right from that top one, and we're just going to check. Now if they're all the same length, it doesn't matter which way they go back in. If they're not, then we need to make sure that we put them back in the right order. Now it's looking already like they're all the same, so, and all the way through we're looking for cracks in the casings. Is there any? Where are they? Could they potentially lead to bad running or poor running of the engine? Right, okay, so as you can see, we've jumped a little bit here. I've managed to get the bottom cover off, and we have got some oily residue in the bottom of there. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but there is some oily residue in the bottom of there, which we're going to clean out. Now, as I've been taking this off, it's destroyed the gasket inside. So, I'm not going to replace the gasket for you guys, for when you, whoops, that's our magnet. Once we take, I'm not going to replace the gasket for you guys because there is literally no point. Right, okay, so at this point, I've had a few camera issues. Unfortunately, my camera doesn't, the battery seems to be wearing out quite quickly. I have got another one on charge, so sorry if that last bit was a bit juddery. So, I've taken this base plate off. As you can see, the gasket has perished, taking it off, like I said in the previous video. I won't be replacing this gasket for you guys because it's just going to break again. And to be honest, it's more cost that we just don't need. Now, right, so back to what I was saying, we need to make sure if we're taking parts off, we know the way in which they go back on. Now I've marked a cross on here, and I'm going to mark a cross on the inside there. So we know that when we put this back on, those crosses should line up, and we put it back on in the right orientation. The screws for this part are all the same size, so literally I can pick those screws up, I can put them in a box, and I can then close that up and label it. I might just put the spark plug in there just so it's out the way. And we'll label that as the base screws and add that to the pile, because we don't want to be losing any of them. Now these bits of gasket can just go in the bin because they're currently providing us with no use. Now at this point, the gentleman that I spoke to, who I got this off, he told me that the reason why he thought this engine was broken was due to lack of compression. Now that means that there's a gap down the sides of the cylinder, and if we was to pull this piston down, there shouldn't be any sucking at the top. Now if you listen, I don't know if you can hear that pop, but there is definitely compression there. There should be enough to allow this to fire. Yeah? So there must be another reason why this doesn't work. Now, when I pulled this off, if you noticed in the video, this was freewheeling, it was moving freely. Now it shouldn't. The reason for that is because of these magnets. Now when these magnets line up to the magneto at the top, that's when it indicates for the spark, that's what causes the spark plug to fire a spark and ignite the fuel. Now if the piston is at the top of its travel when that goes off, that's brilliant, because the fuel catches fire and fires the piston down, and bang, and we get a nice big good strong combustion. Now if that spark plug sparks at any other time, its firing order would be out. So when you turn this, it should be locked onto the splines which are there. I will drop some photos into the video. But they should be locked onto these splines here. Now, after looking inside this flywheel, you can see the splines have been smashed off. The key that is inside there has been smashed off at some point. So that means that this engine has been sparking it may not have been sparking at all, because it may be that when you're pulling the pull cord it's not spinning correctly. Other than that, it may also mean that there is no, what am I trying to say? It's firing out of order, yeah? When that piston is at the wrong stage in its stroke, yeah? So, getting to the bottom of this, we've managed to work it out. It's because of that sheared spline. Now, if we wanted to repair this, we could possibly go on, have a look at the part numbers, and see if we can get another flywheel, yeah, with a keyway cut in it. Other than that, I would imagine that these engines aren't really meant to be taken apart, and we could, you know, I'm not really sure. We'd have to have a look and see if we could find one. Other than that, I don't imagine that this engine would run again. If it would run badly, because, like I say, the firing of the actual spark plug is at the wrong time in its stroke. So this is the level at which I want you to be able to get this engine. Yeah, you should have been able to get to this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pictures of all the parts apart, and then I'm going to film myself putting it back together, obviously without the running commentary. That will give you a chance to see how it goes back together. So if you've stuck with me this long, thank you very much for staying, and I hope it's been an insight, and I hope you've enjoyed the project as a whole.